Alrighty, we are up and running. Uh, First off, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to meet with me and do this little Q&A. You, of course, being Bob Morris, the RoleMaster Unified on Foundry VTT creator. And I just wanted to thank you because there's been a couple of times I've had questions and you've directly answered them. You've even invited me onto this onto your own server to show me how certain things work. I just wanted to say on the very top, I really appreciate it. I've been a fan of RoleMaster for at least 30 years. My very first fall in love with Rollmaster was a bar fight where I got my hand cut off by a farmer. And having played like second edition D&D, the idea of like criticals and losing limbs was like a novel idea, and I've been in love with it ever since. And I've always felt like the big negative to Rollmaster was that there's a lot to keep track of. And so for a virtual tabletop, what you've written tracks a lot of the stuff behind the scenes so that the players can just get to the process of playing. I really, really appreciate that because it makes so much of Rollmaster like just it just makes it really great. I just wanted to say thank you very
Oh,
much. And with that, I have some questions.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We have some common ground on those experiences.
Yeah, my first question is kind of a two-parter. What drew you to Rollmaster to begin with, and what version of Rollmaster was it?
Oh, it was before, yeah. So I was in junior high school. I had my D&D books in my backpack, and I was in the lunchroom, and yeah, this guy I sat across from, he's a friend of mine still to this day. He's like, "Why are you still playing D&D?" This is 1979, 1980. He goes, "If you're gonna play that, you got to play it with arms law and claw law." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so that by high school, I was playing Rollmaster. He basically said, "Hey, there's other things other than D&D you can play." And so he, just people at school, they had been to more hobby stores than me apparently, and they knew about the ice products as an extension to D&D. So I think a lot of my friends were playing D&D with using arms long claw as supplements as they originally designed before there was like a character campaign companion or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Character law, that's what it was. And yeah, so that's I started that early, really. And I don't remember my very first adventure, but it was close. And I remember I played a half elf. We were playing in the Middle Earth, of course, and there were some orcs coming across the river. I was up on some wall as a half elf archer, as a rogue. It was the profession I was, and I shot an arrow and I open ended like two times in a row, and the orc passed away, with that shot, and I've never. That was probably my sex. I don't think it was my first. It was probably my second or third game with Rollmaster. So, but that memory of that was just when the game master read the critical off. I was totally in love, and haven't left since.
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah, we tried probably 10 years later is when I about probably about 10 years later is when I discovered Rollmaster, in the early 90s. Uh yeah, my brother-in-law who was in college was like, "Oh, you play D&D, try this." And he made me a character. I had no idea what I was doing. Got in a bar fight because I was like, the best way to figure out the mechanics of something is to just jump into it. And then I took this back to like my play group and was like, "You guys got to try this out." And we went back and forth from like second edition AD&D and Rollmaster, and we implemented we integrated the arms law, claw law into AD&D as well. And we tried MERP, Middle Earth role playing. We goof around with all this stuff, and of course, making stuff up along on the way, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And yeah, it's just I've always
I,
loved Rollmaster.
yeah, I've told a lot of people like I back then when that first got started, the rules were. I mean, it was hard for me to pick up. It was really complicated, especially when the first character law came out. I'd read that and I'm like, what exactly am I doing? Because it was so different. I was alien to me. It was my first experience with anything like that. But and there's a whole group of us that were making role master characters, and I'm pretty sure we did several things wrong in retrospect, but we had a lot of fun with those characters.
Yeah, I'm sure I did a lot of things wrong. I'm sure we did a lot of things wrong. I remember the red spined uh, edition. You know, the character law, arms law, claw law. Um, when you got to body development, there was like half a page that was just blank right underneath where it talks about body development and hit point calculations. And one of us like wrote out the formula, and that was how we figured out how you figured out hit points. Because if you just read the block text, it's like the most convoluted block text
Yeah.
math problem, and you literally have to break out the formula to do it. And so we'd always take people like, okay, who wrote it down in their copy? Uh, and yeah,
Yeah.
great game, really complicated.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
complication is the love of the game. You know, it's what makes the game the game.
Yeah, there were so few games. I know there were probably, I mean, there's probably more than I recall, but like Traveler and whatnot, I vaguely remember as well on RuneQuest at that period. But there was something about the mystery of decoding the RoleMaster rules and in that first or second edition that was really challenging to all those young kids.
Yeah, it was a thing, uh, and just the idea that it was something other than D&D. You
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah. There's like a mystery to it that just drew you in.
yeah. So the next question then, it's kind of silly, is Dungeon Master or Game Master? What term do you use?
Oh, man, I think what term do I use? I think recently I've been calling it the GM. I
Yeah.
but every now and then it'll slip and I'll say Dungeon Master. Yeah, so I've got myself mostly on the GM Game Master vernacular now, but every once in a while, in a moment of excitement or whatever, I will use the phrase Dungeon Master.
Yeah, it's been a running kind of joke for 30 years with us is if somebody says they're a DM, then they've only played Dungeons and Dragons. And as soon as you start picking up other games, you become a GM. It was like this weird like pseudo elitist thing, and so it's always a question we ask people is Dungeon Master or Games Master? And it's just kind of a silly question, but I've always liked it.
It-
And also like in RoleMaster, one of my early things like reading this and it says Game Master. I'm like, what's a Game Master? It's like, well, they're not going to say Dungeon Master. And my brother-in-law's like, yeah, they're not going to say Dungeon Master because that's like a D&D thing. And it was
Yep.
one of these weird. It's always a Role Master question because it's just the first time I ran into it was the idea of we're not a dungeon master, we're a game master, and it's just a fun little question.
It is. That's a good one. I actually, I'm thinking about that now, and I think some of my players still refer to it as DMing. It's almost like its own, I don't know, adjective.
It's like the term Xerox for making copies or Band-Aid.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just always been kind of a fun little question. You know, you ask
yeah.
somebody like my son who's 17, it's game master, or sorry, it's dungeon master because all he's really played is D&D, like some Pathfinder and stuff like that. But he's not a real big heavy gamer. He's actually a lot more of a physical active kind of guy. He's actually at a wrestling tournament today. So he's not as big a gamer as I am, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. Uh, anyway, next question: do you have a favorite character death story? Because everybody I've known who's played RoleMaster has had one.
Character. Oh, death story.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't. It's kind of a sad memory. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the most epic that it happened when I was in high school, and my friends still talk about it. Especially the game master that killed my character. He likes to talk about it a lot. Yeah, I was that same half elf that shot that bow. Well, we played that campaign for many years. Well, we got a little cocky, and there were some guards next to this, like it was like a train of wagons, covered wagons, and they had kidnapped my buddy who was a halfling. His name was I remember his name. It was Flynn Wackyweed. That was his character's name. And I knew that they had my buddy, and so my plan was, well, let's wait for it to get dark. I will get some poison and I will assassinate these guards in the dead of night, and then I'll save my friend. I won't ask for anybody else's help. Okay. Well, I was in the dark, man. I pulled that bow back and I rolled great. And it, I remember it like hit the guy and like it bounced off and into the ground and he looked up and I was like, I said some bad words, I'm sure. And I was still I was cocky though, right? So I was like, I don't need a bow to kill this guy. I'll just kill him with my sword. I'm Cedric Hawk. That was my character's name. And so I went up there and yeah, I got beat up and then they burned me at the stake the next day.
Oh,
So yeah, so I didn't get to save my friend. And my favorite character of all time, at the time anyway, was now deceased. And the
oh.
other characters were like, "We can't save you, buddy. You got yourself into a hot mess." The thing is, I went up to the guy and I asked for my arrow back, and then he clubbed me, and that's what started the whole downfall.
Pardon me, can I have this arrow I shot at you back? I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, high school play, right? That was me, probably sophomore or something.
Oh yeah. There's the amount of like silly high school antics in gaming,
Yep.
and then like when you get older, it's like, oh, let's try to be serious about this. It's a whole gaming maturity thing. Uh, yeah. So as an archer, did you ever run into the uh, arrow fumble where like as you pull back the string, you let go and like you caught your ear and your ear goes flying off? Did you ever?
I don't remember. I don't remember having that happen to me.
Oh, that was one of
In
those
my
things.
own games,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say in my own games, there's a character called Emma, who's a magent in RMU, and she has more crossbow fumbles than
Oh,
anyone I know. She's broken the string of her crossbow several times. And the other guy curiously, there's a character called Radulus who is a rogue who loves to use his bow, but has fumbled his arrow several times and has shot. The fumble where it goes off and hits the closest person or whatever
yeah.
in this direction, and it has always hit the party's fighter in the foot, and so he's got serious damage to this foot, and it's always the same foot for this fumble somehow. So it's kind of fun to.
Oh, yeah. For me, like I remember reading the arrow or the bow fumble. Again,
Yeah.
the red spine one, and it was just like the idea of there being all these tables for fumbles. That was one of the things that I fell in love with. I mean, yes, the
Oh
actual
yeah.
crits against monsters are great, and like foe's skeletal structure turns to vapor, pick foe up with spatula, those kinds of things are great. But like what, yeah, one of these is just like you snap back your bow really like an instinctive, just quick shot kind of thing, and you
Yep.
catch your ear, and your ear goes flying like 5 feet to the right, and it's like -20 to hearing. I was like, oh my god, I love that one. So every time I hear like Archer and Rollmaster, there's that, and there's like the shooting the guy in the wrist. He's got his weapon and you shoot him in the wrist, he drops his weapon. There's just so many great
Yep.
criticals,
Oh,
which I'm gonna just say,
oh,
without the criticals, Rollmaster isn't that interesting. I mean, it's still a good game, but those criticals just they
oh,
they,
yeah,
they
the
make it.
fumbles, the spell failures, they actually, I don't know if you had a lot of time with RMU yet, but there's been several games I've watched, if I don't watch them, the game master he'll DM me after the game, and like this last one, it's a game that's being run in Texas. He's like, "Oh man, they were like on a roll last night. Everyone was breaking stuff, so the breakage rolls are like automated and on the Foundry side, so
Yeah,
people are breaking their weapons and yeah,
yeah, we actually had that happen in one of our little test runs. I took my brother-in-law through it, and this is actually where we came up with the term tactical onion for Rollmaster, because it was like it's you learn something and you peel that layer away and there's like a new layer of and it's you always know like, oh, Rollmaster's a tactical game. You have to really pay attention to stuff, because if you just kick the door in and charge in, you're going to get chopped apart by like your second or third encounter. So I've always
yep,
stressed to
yep,
people that it's not D&D. It's not I have 20 hit points, I can take how I can ignore this or whatever, I'm perfectly fine. It's this whole
yeah,
tactical thing. So we were talking. I was like, it's kind of like a tactical onion, where every layer you peel away, there's more, tactics. And so he had uh, a 4-person party. It was the same video you saw before, only
yeah.
I had him running it. And so he got three of the characters like staged for an ambush, and he used the mages as bait. The mage is like, "Hey guys, come here, fight me," and then proceeded to chop these guys up. and it was really well thought out until the crits started happening. And then like one of the player characters expires due to bleeding out from concussive damage and crits. One of them gets down to like 5 hit points. And this is like a 4-on-3 fight. And they're
Yeah,
they're they're
that's
like a level above the guys they're fighting. They outnumber them by one, and it still came down to like this really really close fight. And they ambush them. They have like the benefit of the ambush,
oh, oh,
and it's a that's where we came up with the phrase tactical onion. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's it's a real it's it's kind of a simple game in that, and but it's complex, and like the strategy on like what skills you develop to reduce penalties, like your footwork or reverse strike, or these things, they all matter. Fortitude, like, well, I don't need fortitude, what's that skill? You read it and you're like, whatever, and then all of a sudden you realize I should have taken some ranks in fortitude. And what that does, if anyone doesn't know, is you have a chance to reduce your penalties by half, or ignore them all for that round. You have a chance also by trying that'll make it worse. Taking more fatigue, for example. But yeah, it's an amazing game like that.
yeah. There's so many little bits and pieces that if you overlook it, you can really nerf your character. Like I was just
Yeah.
making characters, advancing them, and just playing around with the mechanics and stuff. And I think I got the fighter up to like level 6. He's in chainmail, and so he's at level 6, and I think actually he's at level 5, and I haven't put anything into footwork because I completely overlooked it.
Oh, my
So
friend,
I'm
and
like,
fortitude.
yeah. So I'm like looking at this, going, okay, so I have to like strap this guy and make a new one because you know I
I'll send you my brother has a fighter, Kai. I think he's 10th level now. We've been playing this since 2022, RoleMaster Unified, so he's
yeah
10th level now. He's an amazing fighter. He's got so much footwork and so much fortitude. He literally, and for a fighter, it's really important, right? Because they're a main line. They might be in melee, right? And they're going to get stunned. But for fortitude, you can shake that off a little bit,
yeah
and you're going to have to run and attack after, or whatever. And so you need the footwork to reduce those penalties. And yeah, so
yeah it's
yeah,
it's just it's one of those things that you play it a little bit, you play around with it, and that's why what we're doing is while we're wrapping up our current Pathfinder Second Edition campaign, which I'm still probably months away from wrapping that up. We're going to be learning how to play RoleMaster, and then I'm also creating the campaign we're going to be doing at the same time. So
well,
once I wrap up Pathfinder, we'll roll right into RoleMaster,
yeah,
and
I saw some of your.
hopefully they'll know.
It's beautiful. Yeah, you get some practice runs. They'll be good.
Yeah. Um, All right, so the next question, getting kind of into the actual Foundry side of things, what brought you to Foundry VTT for RMU? I know Rollmaster has stuff on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, but like, what brought you to doing this for Foundry?
Yeah, at the moment in time, I've told the story a couple times. I'll be brief, but a friend of mine, he used to live just down the road from me in an adjacent county. I went over to his house on some weekend, and we're talking, and he's like, "Hey, we should play that game we played in college." And I'm like, because not only did I play in high school and junior high, I played in college like hardcore with Space Master and all that. And he's like, that I'm like, that game we played in college, you roll master? And he's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, dude, I haven't played that game since college. And he goes, but he was sick, right? And so I'm like, all right. He's basically saying, hey man, I really want to do this. I don't know, if everything's going to work out for me or not in the near term. And things are amazing for him right now, but at the time he was pretty unsure. And so I went home that night, and I literally got on the internet and Googled RollMaster, and I found Drive-Through RPG. I'd never been on Drive-Through RPG before, and I saw they had literally like the week before just released Core Law for Unified RollMaster Unified for Core Law, and I'm like, well, I remember Spell. I'm like, well, where's Spell Law? Like that wasn't on there at all. And then I got on. I found that there was a Discord. I went on there, and people were talking about that too, that being absent and but coming soon. And so I called my friend back and I said, "Hey, I could do this RoleMaster thing, but there's just gonna be theater of the mind magic for a while. Can you guys mind not playing like a magician or anything for a while? And he's like, yeah, that's totally cool, no worries. So we played with Jess Corlaw for, gosh, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months. It was a good time. So that's what got me into RoleMaster Unified. And then he calls me, when we're in that, we're just playing at a table. I had,
Yeah.
printed out all the stuff. I actually still have the binders, all the tables, like just doing it old school.
Hmm.
And he goes, "Hey, I'm moving out of state." I'm like, "What, dude? We just got everyone back together that we used to play with, plus some others." I'm like, "And you're the why we all got together. We can't stop now." And so I, I was like, "How do I play online?" And I looked at Owlbear Rodeo, and there's things like that. But there was at the time there was only fantasy grounds like RMC. I don't, Roll20 might have been in development. I don't remember where that was. I don't remember coming across it at the time. Um, and there was ERA, and ERA. I thought about using ERA, but what I did was I signed up for a game outside of my normal campaign on Fantasy Grounds to play in this guy's camp. He was in Greyhawk, Rollmaster set in the world of Greyhawk.
Oh, that sounds good.
Um, yeah, it was awesome, man. We basically did against the what was that against the Hill Giants or whatever, that whole
Oh, yeah.
camp, that thing. The guy asked, "Does anyone remember this?" I'm like, dude, I haven't looked at that since like the early '80s. I have no memory of what's inside those modules, so it's all new to me. And it was an awesome time. And so I played on that for 6 months, and I'm like, man, but there's no unified. And then every once in a while, there would be something like, hey, we're going to use the unified AP system for combat tracking instead of RMSS's version or whatever. And then those modules never really worked out well. There's always something quirky with Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah.
But Fantasy Grounds, like for what RMC or whatever it was, it was totally fine. If you just use those rules, it was great. And so I was like, all right, now I got to figure out how to do this on a VTT. So I looked at all the different VTs, what I could do with my skills that I had, and Foundry looked like it would be a fit. And so that's how I started on Foundry. It was like, I'm going to build it for myself and my group. And I didn't even build. So this is crazy. I haven't really told anybody this, but I almost had no code in Foundry for RoleMaster. It was all in a sidecar, and I used a an Envoy proxy basically to make it look so when when the network requests were coming in, I could route them either to my standalone program or to Foundry, and then Foundry could when it would make requests, it would think it was making them locally, but it was really making them to my this little sidecar I had going. So I wrote the RoleMaster rule set in 2022 in a language called Go, and it was basically a terminal application. And then Foundry, if you ran them both at the same time, Foundry would think that it was using Foundry data, right? But it wasn't. It was using this program off to the side.
Nice.
And so you could make characters like an actor. It was like almost nothing in Foundry. There was like, I didn't have to do like all the template or the data models. There was no data model in Foundry because I didn't use it. I just used it for moving tokens, and all the mechanics for the criticals and everything was going off to my sidecar.
Nice.
And it had a lot of things like fireballs and all sorts of stuff animated. And I'm like, man, I'd really like to do more on this, but I don't want to like boil the ocean if I don't have a license because I'm just doing it for me. So there was this, I don't know what it was. 2 years ago, I emailed. I think it was roughly 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I emailed ICE, and I gave them a demo, like a video demo of everything I had going on. Yeah, we talked about it for several months, and yeah, then they said, yeah, why don't you give it a try? And so then I had to basically rewrite the whole thing because it has to be a Foundry app. It can't be this weird thing that I did for myself. I actually had to learn how to code in Foundry. So
Wow.
yeah, I hope that's not too long of a story, but yeah, that's how I got to starting on Foundry. Is basically a friend was not doing so well, asked me to do Rollmaster just by chance. RMU had just been released, so we started playing that. He was moving out of state. I needed an option, so I researched VTTs. At the end of the day, I picked Foundry, did some stuff with it, and then I wanted to do more with it. I contacted ICE, and they said, "Yeah, go for it." And here we are today.
Awesome. Yeah, I've played around with Roll20, Fantasy Grounds. like all three versions of Fantasy Grounds that they had. I think they're now just one big conglomerate, just Fantasy Grounds system. And then yeah, I got to Foundry and I've been using it for several years, and it it's the thing that I prefer to use at this point. Uh, and yeah, I really appreciate. Like I first started using Foundry with fifth edition D&D, and all the automation, quality of life modules, and all that stuff, and the fireballs and special effects and all that. Because I kind of ran into the same situation where our core gaming group, half of them moved a couple hundred miles away. You know, and it was like this is the only way we're going to still game. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and yeah, if it wasn't for virtual tabletop systems existing, I'd be like, I don't know how we're doing this, guys. Yeah, I
Oh
really
yeah,
enjoy Foundry.
oh yeah, what's really cool with Foundry, Rollmaster or anything is like you can kind of build your campaign. You can make the game the way you want it with all these modules, right? So you can stand on the shoulders of giants like JB2A or Perry sound effects.
Yeah,
Or and you can use like any token art like the Pathfinder Bestiary or Forgotten Adventures, right? For me, I only have a preset for Forgotten Adventures, but you can just bring in whatever you want and make the game yours. And there's a beta group with ICE that tested a lot of this stuff for me over the year, and the stuff that some of them do is just amazing. It's just incredible what they can do with it on their own
yeah. The not to make a
with the
fun of
module
it.
extension.
Yeah, not to make not to poke fun, but the modularization of Foundry is one of the biggest things. Like, oh, I don't like you look at just base Foundry, you're like, oh, how would I do X, Y, and Z? There's a module for it that's going to automate it, show you how to do it. Some of them get really complex. Sometimes you end up with like 100 active modules and you've got to figure some stuff out and you kind of pare things down. But
Yeah,
yeah, you can go a little nuts with some of this stuff. But yeah, the JB animated spells stuff is just awesome. Um, in one of our games, anytime the fireball goes off, I have like this sound effect that it's like a nuclear bomb going off. It's this boom
yeah,
rumble with a little echo and whatnot. It's just yeah, that's like the level 9 fireball just went off, uh, and that's all theater of the mind if you're doing it in person. You roll a bunch of dice, you move your guy around, you measure out a few things, but then this automates all of that. And then when you look at RoleMaster with all of its charts and things to keep track of, and you've made it to where all that stuff is automated, and then
yeah,
we can just get to the gaming, which is awesome.
yeah. Yeah. So that was a big thing too, is like taking the shoe leather out of Rollmaster, so it's as easy to use as any of these other games. Like if you were coming from Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder into Rollmaster, I wanted to make sure it felt familiar in some ways, and it wasn't overburdensome in any way. So there's no reason not to enjoy it, right? I actually think the fidelity of the criticals and the fumbles actually enhances the game on a VTT versus some of the other ones that are it's just hit points. It's just attrition through hit points.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's wrong. So yeah, I think I mean, a lot of people, if go on Reddit and you look, you'd be like, man, that game was built for a VTT from before they even knew what a VT was going to be. It was designed. It was just asking for that to come into existence. I
yeah,
agree. Actually, my same friend, the one that I started this whole adventure on, he paid me probably one of the greatest compliments. He one day he just mentioned, he goes, this was in beta still, and he goes like, Bob, this is the game I imagined Rollmaster could be like in the '80s, and I just didn't know how to do it. So that was,
yeah,
I thought that was, I was onto something when he said that. I thought so. I was pretty happy with that.
yeah. I've always felt Rollmaster as a system would have been just a phenomenal computer RPG. Just
Yeah,
have a computer just crunch all that stuff out. And this is the closest we're going to get to that. And you have player and dungeon master, game master agency because you build your own campaign. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with a game called Darklands that came out in the like I think 1992 by Microprose, but it was
mm,
always a game that I felt was like the closest to Rollmaster. Now, mechanically, system wise, not so much, but it was this brutal combat. You could get uh, you could get crippled. You had to pay attention to how old you were because eventually you get too old to adventure and whatnot. And it takes place in like 1300 AD uh, German territory, like it's Prague and the force of Germany and whatnot. And yeah, it's always kind of reminded like this game would be awesome if it used the RoleMaster system. Um, yeah, but just automation in Foundry for RoleMaster is wonderful. And again, I just wanted to thank you. Uh,
Oh, shit, thank you.
and then
There's more to come on the automation. There's 5,227 spells between spell law and treasure law, and there's more coming with all the other books that are coming out.
well,
Uh,
that ties in with the next question, which is what are the future plans for the project now that the core project is out?
yeah, the core. So the core was like the, it was hard to like what makes a good R1 for that, you can sell and people aren't going to like return it right away because it's not complete enough. So I tried. There's like a balance there. So I've said this to a lot of my people. Is like it's like an oil paint. A roll master is like an oil painting on this massive canvas. I'm just putting brush strokes on, and someday the whole painting will be done. Um, but so there's a lot of little places where there's the automation. You'll be like, hey, you're like, wow, this is so automated, and over here it's like it just kind of stops short. For example, like a healing spell, you have to like go in and do the healing yourself on the sheet after it's cast.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, for example. And there's some spells that aren't automated. Like I believe like I'll say jolt's a mentalism one. It's really common, and I shoot myself for not having automated that yet because it's so common. But none of that is like hard even. It's just like I set up my checklist and I just try to walk down that list so I don't get too distracted. But yeah, so there's lots of like little things that have to finish up. So largely it's like treasure law. Okay. There's a all the alchemy. I'm trying to get through all the alchemy, like all the enchantments you could do so you can build your own magic weapons. So treasure law is really cool in RMU for Foundry because like you go to all those enchantments, you want to make a magic sword, you want to have it, if you want to give it a bonus for slaying orcs, you can. You want to give it a bonus having a sword that's enhances your spellcasting roll. You can do that. Okay, so there's a lot of them that are already supported. I'm working on like the one of the harder ones right now. It's called the general bonus. Um, but the so I'm going to get through the majority of those, and then I'm going to turn my attention back to spell law and all the like the healing lists and things like that. So more spells will be automated and the mentalism lists. Uh, and then and then into combat too. So in this character sheet, you'll see, hey, there's a better parry system that I got planned out. I just haven't finished it, so it's not here yet. So it's a little more. It requires some like player level accounting on what they're doing right now. And even like if you go into the like on your video, like you want to use 4 phases per round, like I have a plan for how to help automate that so it's easy to keep track of, and yeah, so I can start finishing those things up. So there's a lot of little things in the rules as written that um aren't in there yet, but I felt like overall that the game allowed a good balance of automation and theater of the mind, and I try to make it so the character sheet can be edited to make up for any of the deficits I might have in those automations. So that's the on the current 3 books. That's the plan, and I know there's I hope they don't all hit at the same time, but there's 3 more books in the works. Yeah, there's a character companion, there's Creature Law 2, and then Nash, who's the author of the Roll20 version, he's writing Arcane Companion.
Oh, nice.
So, um, yeah, all 3 of those are probably pretty big projects. So we'll see.
And are those going to become? Are you going
Foundry,
to
oh,
put them into Foundry?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I got to
The
prepare my
next,
wallet.
yeah. Well, well, ICE hasn't released 3 books in one year in a long time. Hopefully, they don't release all. I hope they do release it on a personal level. But in terms of being able to do it in Foundry in one year, it's like don't release all 3 in one year. That's in the back of my head. But I hope they do because it'd be good for them to have those books out.
Yeah.
The, I mean, I think once they get those out, that's like next level stuff, next step for them. But uh, proceed. I'll just carry on.
Oh. Uh, well, at least I'm excited about that stuff as well because yeah. that was the other thing I loved about RoleMaster was the companions and creature laws, and like just all these books. I mean, I played
I got
AD&D, and I loved like the Monsters Compendiums, and I loved as the GM, I love reading all that kind of stuff. So just hearing that there's plans for more is just like, all right. But then yeah, my wallet's like, oh boy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Hopefully they're reasonably priced. I actually have my own desk, where I do my work. It's like I actually have the Fiend. So my favorite like D&D book was the Fiend Folio of all the books. So
nice.
I have a copy of the Fiend Folio, and so in my own campaign, I have Get the Yankee and Mind Flayers, and a lot of classics like that. So I use that as a reference and just build my own creatures. So yeah, it's all good stuff. And then the companions, I don't have all of them. I have most of them though. And of course, I got a copy of the Middle Earth role playing.
Yeah, Merp was fun. Yeah, I think my first printed campaign thing that I ever played was B1 in Search of the Unknown, the Quest Queaton Keep. This
Yep.
old D&D thing, and I
Yeah.
think in almost every single campaign and game I've ever run, I've put that somewhere for the players to find.
Oh, cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I mean between that and Temple of Elemental Evil, that was one of my first big mega campaigns that I got. I actually bought it used at a pal's bookstore, and it didn't have any maps, which made it really
Oh,
hard to use.
oh,
But
man.
but I read that thing
Yeah.
like cover to cover so many times. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, those are classic. Those are classic.
kind of a meat grinder though. I wouldn't really want to put somebody through that.
Yeah. You
To
gotta, yeah, I think, yeah, those are like for that, those are designed, I think most of those are designed for like Gen Con tournament play type of thing.
yeah,
Or
we actually
I
did
don't think
a
they really do like that anymore.
not real. I mean, they have some stuff that are like mega dungeon things, and I know World Wizards of the Coast they do their books. They're like this is a campaign for levels 1 through 10, and they're a lot more player friendly. I don't want to like
Yeah.
dismiss it or anything because it's just a different play style and whatnot. But back in the day, it was just this like first and second edition D&D were pretty deadly. Not Rolemaster deadly, but they were still pretty deadly.
Oh
Um,
yeah, D&D was at low level. D&D was like super. I remember if I got the rules wrong. I haven't played AD&D since I was a kid, but I'm pretty sure your magic user. If you elected to be a magic user, you got 1d4 hit points or something like that.
yeah, it was
And
one d
so
four.
like, so you're dead on the first hit.
Yeah, and you have one spell, and you better pick one.
Yeah,
And you're saying it's either going to be magic missile, sleep, or mage armor. And you better
yeah,
hope you pick the right one for the right circumstance. And yeah, it's brutal because there's no like -10 or negative your con value or any of those rules that got added in later on or house ruled or whatever. So it's still pretty as a concussive hits kind of thing. It was still pretty deadly. Uh, I
yeah,
know for fifth
yeah.
edition D&D back in like 2014 when it came out, we ran a campaign. I convinced the players that let's do a fifth edition Temple of Elemental Evil campaign, and I heavily edited a bunch of that stuff because it's supposed to be like level 1 through 10, and at some point you fight a Balor demon, a big like CR-17 demon that you encounter. It's like there's no way you can beat this. So I like heavily rewrote a lot of stuff. I threw in a lot of player friendly stuff like hero points and rerolls, and the body count was still we had 14 characters killed by the time we finished that campaign, and that's only like to level 10.
Yeah.
But
It,
body count of 14 dead characters, which was just the
that's
most I've ever had.
that's yeah. Well, that's the type of module those were though. They were these you know survival uh modules essentially.
Yeah, and yeah, I learned a lot playing that, running it. Uh, I couldn't see doing something like that in Rollmaster. I was trying to explain to some people because we went from that to like our current campaign in Pathfinder. There's still a lot of dungeon delving and whatnot, and a lot of combat because the game
Yeah.
allows
So
is fairly friendly.
that's interesting because when those were being released, right? You had a game like MERP, you had Iron Crown with that with the Tolkien license, right?
Yeah.
And they're making these like these modules like you might see Isengard or Mirkwood, and you open those up and they're not like ready to run modules. They're just background information on everything and maps. So you could put your own adventure together. It wasn't laid out, what the adventure was going to be at all.
Yeah. Like I got the Moria setting, and I was like, oh, this is gonna like give me like a from one side to the other side. Here's all your, and I open it up, and it's yeah, there's maps, you know,
Yep.
and there's a whole lot of like travel down this tunnel for 6 days, kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, and then you get to this, and there wasn't like an actual adventure, but it was just so much just data for you to like create your own thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it
They
kind of
they
helped shape.
foresaw the future.
They
Yeah.
they foresaw things, and it helped shape like how I look at like dungeon design now. And I know, in my opinion, I haven't fully tested this by like running the game, this far. But like, if you were to run using RoleMaster any of these mega dungeons where it's a couple of rooms, combat, hallway, combat, um, I just
You- You'd be dead.
exactly I've tried to explain to people like, okay, so in D&D, the idea is every 10 encounters you level. Now, an encounter can be a fight or it can be a
You,
particularly nasty trap. But then if you
it,
do the same
it,
thing, 10 Rollmaster encounters and half the party's dead and the other half is crippled.
you you could get through. You might get through a couple of rooms, right? But the problem is your healers or whatever are going to run out of power points to stop the bleeding.
Yeah,
Then you're, and I mean that's assuming you didn't lose an arm or a leg yet. And if you're just bleeding and you're okay, if that's the only issue you have, the fatigue and the bleeding will eventually end up killing you. You know.
yeah. So like a roll, I think the difference, especially in my head as I'm like designing a campaign, the difference between like a Rollmaster quote unquote dungeon encounter and a D&D or Pathfinder dungeon encounter, it's like I'm thinking there's going to be like 3 or 4 rooms in the Rollmaster experience, whereas in D&D I could do like a lot more just because it's
Yeah. Well, in romance, you're not going to go in swords ablaze. It's going to be a different. You might. I don't know, but in a
it
lot
depends
of
on the
games, are,
players.
yeah, it's just a situational thing. But there's going to be more subterfuge or and understanding. The people coming in and out of this, the cave or whatever it is you're looking at. You're going to be really cautious, right? And you're gonna put more thought into how you're gonna accomplish whatever you're gonna do because you do know that if you screw up, there's a good chance you're gonna come out with some really bad wounds, possibly death.
Yeah, and that's for me, like that's what I see players moving from, I'll just say, like traditional fantasy role playing games, D&D, uh, Pathfinder, etc. If you move into role master, you take that same mindset, they are going to get chopped to pieces. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm going to be running that series of let's learn how to play, tactical onion role
yeah.
master tutorials, because yeah, it's just if you go into it thinking you can kick the door in, cast fireball, and rock and roll, uh, there's gonna be some body count. Um,
There's one door, two doors. You're gonna get through some doors, yeah, but then your luck's gonna change.
yeah, it's an attrition thing. As soon as you start taking like, oh, the fighter is stunned, staggered, bleeding. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's over.
It's like, oh, okay, the guy that was taking all the hits is down. Oh crap.
Yep,
So
yep.
yeah, and that's the joy of Rollmaster, I think, is going to be getting people to
High
think like that.
definition. Yeah, yeah. You get you can it doesn't take away from any of the role playing, but the combat has consequences. Like your consequences for everything you do, essentially. Some are just you succeed or not, no big deal, right? You might be haggling for something, you didn't get the price you want, no big deal. But if you're in a combat situation or if you're walking on a tightrope or if you're swimming in a river with your armor on, things may not work out like you had planned. You're
Yeah,
not, it's not, not everyone is a superhero. It tries to put you kind of like it doesn't matter what level you are, you're at risk.
yeah, and I think that's wonderful. Like
Yep.
from a GM standpoint, I'm excited to see how the players like react to and deal with this new system. Just they I've got a player again. We're playing Pathfinder, and they're high level. They're like level 17. They're going around. Their mission right now is they're trying to kill these war band leaders, these generals that are leading armies. Um, so it's a quote unquote simple assassination,
Yeah.
and they're all the bad guys are on this hill, and it's like this ringed camp thing, and they're sneaking, and then the ranger just goes, you know what, screw it, I see a bad guy, I'm gonna fire an arrow and kill this guy. Nobody's in position, nobody was expecting it, and boom, she doesn't kill the guy right off. And there's also this, it's like there's like six dudes on sentry, and she attacks one of them. Alarm goes up, the whole camp is now like this wave of alert is going out, and they're now like 4 rounds into this fight, and all the guys that are on that hill except for the named guys are all basically mooks. They're going to mop them up. They've already killed a bunch of them in the couple of rounds,
Yep.
but there's like 50, 60 dudes,
Yeah,
you know.
just the numbers.
Yeah, and well, in D&D, they've got, again, they're like level 17. I've given them every player advantage they can have. I've tried to run a very player friendly game because I don't like that idea of like it's us versus the GM and the GM's here to kill us. No,
Yeah, yeah.
we're here to tell a story, you know. So I try to give them every advantage, hero points and rerolls, and they've got great items and whatnot, and they're mowing through these guys. But if this was Rollmaster, they'd be toast. Just, oh, hey, 10 guys are firing arrows at one person. You're not going to have a good day. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to those players transitioning to Rollmaster and learning and maybe being a little bit more tactical.
There's a game I played not too long ago in RoleMaster. So another guy is running RMU on Foundry, and I'm a player there. And yeah, we came out of a warehouse, pretty beat up, and in middle of the night. And then someone on the I don't know, we're walking, and we're trying to like just not draw any attention to ourselves. Someone recognized one of the characters, and then the night watch came, and we had like one. We were beat up. We could barely. I was like, oh my god, there's no way. We're not even. We're gonna. We tried something to get away from the night watch. It didn't work, and yeah, we all ended up in jail.
Yeah. And
They didn't kill us. They just they're just taking us for judgment tomorrow.
yeah,
Uh, Yeah, yeah. There's no getting out of that. I mean, some games I think you can wiggle your way out of some of that stuff, but in Rollmaster, I don't know. It's up to the GM, of course. But if you're at a lot of penalties from like you've just accumulated a lot of uh, you know stun and bleeding and other injuries. Most of us had out of power points, a lot of injuries, so we were not swinging like we were pros at all. We were way underpowered compared to like a healthy normal second level fighter, for example. So that's why we got caught.
yeah. uh, that's that's the thing about Rollmaster. It's once the penalties start kicking in, it's attrition.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So one of the questions one of my players had, and I wanted to ask you is, so you have the ERA, and the question was, are there any
Oh,
plans for ERA integration? Uh, like again, using our experiences with Pathfinder, you have a thing called Path Builder, which is a web-based character creator, and you can
yeah,
basically import that character into the game. Uh, and so ERA is kind of the same thing, but for Rollmaster. And I'm really
yeah.
simplifying it. But are there any plans for anything like that? Like where we'd be able to like
Mm,
import characters or data?
Uh, give me a see. Well, show you something. Not that. Oh, it is gonna work. All right. All right. So I'm prototyping. Can you see my screen?
Yep. Oh,
Actually, no, you can't.
okay.
My screen. I gotta share my screen.
Okay.
It's gonna take me just. I'll I gotta get my mouse here figured out here. Is that if I can I segue? Can I show you something?
Sure.
Um, okay. Application. Okay. Gotta go find. Just give me a sec. And I wasn't going to do this, but might as well. All right. Mm, see. Let's do this. All right. So what this is, what I'm doing is I'm prototyping um, an import from ERA to Foundry. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to paste this is an ERA character. I'm going to jam in there. Okay. So this might look familiar if you're familiar with ERA.
Yeah, I see
Okay.
that.
Just yeah, the format is XML. So the output here won't be a complete actor because I'm still working on this, but it's I'm like just a step away from it, maybe a couple hours. So if I do the convert, what it does is you can see it's converted everything I need to create all the skills. It's even got like here's what's important is I can match all this XML to like the compendium entries I need for each skill and what the uh, if it's a professional skill or not, the specialization. Um, and yeah, this was an eighth level. Gosh, I don't even know. What was it? Magician or culture reaver. So, you know, and what it's done is it's taken the ERA character and it's matched it to Foundry assets. So now it's just one step away from being able to be put into the game. So you can just drag and drop a ERA character into Foundry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So this is just me testing my code. This is just real ugly. I mean, I know this is kind of ugly. This is just a local thing. I'm just testing. There's a parse and a migrate. That's what I'm testing here. That's all I'm. And that parse can just get dropped into Foundry.
sweet. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I talked about this. I was on a call with Rabbi a year ago or so, and he asked about that. I said I would love to be able to support import export to something like ERA that's been around for so long, and it has just I think there's a lot of users that will probably use both because I think some people they might play at a table some days, and some days they have to play on a VTT, and so it's fine. You take your character with you, take it out of Foundry, put it back into ERA. That's all good with me. You're playing RoleMaster, you know. So yeah, this is something I've been putting a little bit of time into. I actually work on this every now and then. It's not like on my main checklist, but I it's it's pretty close to being ready to put in there. So you might see it in a couple weeks inside in one of the updates.
Awesome. That is that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Yeah, that was one of the things that, like I said, one of my players, my brother-in-law was actually kind of curious because he wasn't very familiar with Pathfinder. So giving him, the hey, go to Path Builder, and etc. I mean, we're propping up another role-playing game, but what heck. Um, and
Yeah.
then
No,
that
I've
just let
used
him like
it.
look through it, learn how to do some stuff versus doing it in Foundry, and he can play around with it while the server's not up. So he was curious if there was something like that as well. And then yeah,
Oh, oh yeah. So he could yeah, he could make it. ERA, I think it's been a long time since Max has the guy who wrote it. He's got some really good YouTube videos on ERA, and I think it's pretty rich and I imagine it's very complete. He's got quite the following.
yeah,
So,
it was kind of funny because when you put out RMU for Foundry, I was looking around for like, okay, what do people use? And I was kind of on Reddit and whatnot, and people mentioned ERA, and I was like, what's that? And I went to Drive Through RPG, and it turns out I'd bought it years ago, I was like, oh, I own this. And it was one of these things where, like, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I got into a RoleMaster standard system kick. It's one of those things that it's like a heroin addiction. It comes around every once in a while. And so I downloaded some stuff and was thinking about campaign stuff, and I must have purchased ERA and looked at it, and then got distracted by something else. But I just completely forgot. It's like, oh yeah, hey, I've got this. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, so
so
if you're at a table, like if you play in person, um, and you can use ERA like here's how I see it. If you just want to use like you can use any VTT you want. If you just want to use something to move tokens around, and you could use ERA. The game master could use ERA to keep track of like everyone's damage and whatnot. No problemo, right? And so you could be on a VTT with ERA, you know, and really have a great time. And then if you're at a table, the GM can use it, it's just a game master's aid, right? It's
yeah,
going to keep track of all that stuff, and it's going to be right there.
yeah, it's a great little
Absolutely.
program, a little setup,
Yep.
uh, and yeah, it's just curious about integration, and that would be awesome. That's something to look forward to. And like the last pre-assigned question I have was, what optional rules or other house rules do you wish you could have implemented, and are there plans to implement them in the future?
Oh yes. The well, if we go to like house rules or whatever, I think the one that I wish I would have in there right now. It's not that people have been DMing about this. It's just one that's kind of sticks with me. Is this the awarding development points instead of experience points? Okay, so like you at the end of the venture, you say, for everything you did, that's maybe you only get 4 development points for this game that you played, and then you might get 10 or 20 or whatever. Um, then and you wouldn't necessarily have to spend them; they just accumulate, and then the character could be in this constant progression, right? So after every game, they could improve a skill or two, or buy a rank, or save a DP for their the next game or whatever. I just think that it's kind of like the hero system in that way, where the DP it just comes in and you can just constantly improve. I think that would be awesome
Yeah, I have
versus
the
waiting for an entire yeah, because there's like this big gap. Like you're this character, all of a sudden you're way better at when you level up versus kind of this like slow progression. I think the slow progression would be really cool. I would like to use it like that. I haven't had a lot of. I think one guy's asked me about it. Um,
I I want to say I heard you talking about that with last February's
Ravi?
interview with Ravi. And
Yeah,
when
he
he
asked.
when you said that, I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Just hey,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
accomplished something. Here's a couple of DP points.
I wish I could remember. I think that's actually in the book as an optional rule as well. So I think that meets the criteria for an optional rule that I haven't implemented, but I really want to implement. And I said it to Ravi, and I'll say it today. It will probably take me 2 hours to do, and I just haven't done it. Yeah, but there's 1,000 things like that, and so that's 2,000 hours. Um,
Yeah,
so like when people go, why didn't you just do it? Well, because there's always the 2 hour thing. The uh the other one, when I was playing on Fantasy Grounds in RMC, there was this. It was the first time I experienced fate points, where you could re-roll a critical or an attack against you,
yeah.
or a fumble. And no one's asked me yet about fate points, and I'm surprised. But that's one I would think I would like to add to the system and give some fidelity, some setting for the GM to decide when something can be re-rolled, and to spend a fate point. I think that would be really cool. I've played in now 2 games where they use them. Actually, in an RMU campaign on Foundry, right? There's a guy using fate points, and he just says just re-roll it or whatever. But there's no tracking of it like in the game. So it still works. You can still do it. So it's not a house rule that's you can't just do on your own. It's easy enough. Just theater of the mind and taking notes in your biography or whatever, and how many you have. Um, the other one is it's come up a couple times recently here is the metagaming. Like when you're playing, everyone can see like all the roles and the results in the chat. Um, and I knew this even when I was writing this code. This will probably be an issue at some point. But you have to hear me out. I I did that on purpose. Like I didn't restrict what player see versus the GM sees on those chats because at the time I wanted to make sure that I was getting everything right. All right. So there's always going to be a player that's more, a bigger rules lawyer than me. or the GM, and it's going to say that roll is wrong. I actually succeeded, and blah blah blah. And so I try to give all the information and all those numbers. Some of it I could improve, but a lot of times you can hit the little mouse over the info, and it'll break down where everything's coming from. And if someone sees something missing, man, they should let me know. I'll see what I can do to add that, because I want it to be, when there is a question, I want it to be transparent. you know, So, so but some GMs would like to reduce what players see. Just to, like in Fantasy Grounds, that dice tower is a really popular thing. So you're doing a perception roll. You have no idea what your total was. You don't even know what you rolled. The GM just says, you see blah 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 blah. You don't know if that was a critical success or you fumbled. you know, he's just telling you. So you're not metagaming then, right? You're just told, I do this. This is the result, and that's what some people want their. That's how the interaction they want to have with their players. So, yeah, I'll probably do something to restrict some of the information that players can see based on, it might be there's actually one guy, he's in my issues, he's written up a whole thing on how to do it. And his is really complete. I may do something a little bit simpler to begin with, but yeah, I think that'd be an important feature for people who want to love to keep some mystery to some of it. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now in terms of house rules, but um, yeah, I'm sure I will get a litany of them over the next couple of weeks, though.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited by some of the stuff you've mentioned. Um, the ERA integration, uh, the fate point thing. That's something we use something like that for Pathfinder in our current campaign, and it's actually called Hero Points. Uh,
Mhm.
and I want to say there's a module that you can download for Foundry that implements a fate. It's a all systems fate
Huh?
point module, or at least there maybe a year and a half ago.
Uh,
I think I saw something like
I'll have to
that.
check that. Yeah, I'll have
Um,
to say that. Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, that would be interesting.
And then,
So those modules, like there's another module that Army has support for called Polyglot. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. So like if you
oh
type
yeah,
in, yeah, that one's a fun one. It's not changing anything. It just adds some flavor to your game, right? So this is what you hear. I'm going to type it in chat, and I'm going to type it in the language it's being spoken in, and only the players that have that language can read it and understand it, right? That's kind of cool.
yeah. That's for our for the Sword and Crescent campaign. I'm going to be using that because there's so many different like historical languages. And yeah, here's a text written in Aramaic or whatever. Well, I don't know how to speak that. That sucks. Sorry. you know, uh,
maybe take some, maybe you put some development points into languages.
yeah, that's one of the things that in my campaign I'm currently hashing through is I'm using a historical event, the First Crusade, and I want to have like dark fantasy elements. So like not necessarily goblins and orcs and whatnot. And I'm not going to like sub in, these guys are this race. I'm going to keep everything historically as accurate as possible. But I want to have like how do I justify or explain a magic user, right? You know,
Yeah.
so you're going to have like colleges or this particular alchemist or this book or whatever that players can find and study, but they're going to be in different languages.
Oh man, so yeah, so you could have like alchemy can only come from Greece. If you don't have you have a culture from Greece, you're not an alchemist, or there's a lot of cool stuff you could do.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that like it's a massive amount of information to just absorb and turn into something. But yeah, like if you can't speak or write Greek, good luck. And
Yeah.
if you can't speak Italian or if you can't speak Latin, good luck in certain regards. And like clerics, you have the Catholic Church and whatnot, so there's a lot of potential
Oh,
easy fantasy, quote unquote, to put in for that.
yeah.
But one of the things I'm also
Yeah.
looking at is the witch trials and the Inquisition was after the First Crusade. It was actually after all the Crusades, but I still want to have some of those elements of like heresy and heretics and whatnot, because while they're on their road to Constantinople and they're going to go join the First Crusade, I can't just
Oh,
put them in Constantinople at level 1. So I've got to give them stuff to do to get them to about level 10 by the time they get to Constantinople. Just and so yeah, I'm looking at all
very
these
cool.
things. And yeah, polyglot. I
That'd be a
saw
fun.
that. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yep, that's a good. It's a small one, but yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot you can do with the cultures and stuff like that for your game. I'll be interested to hear. Are you gonna make any custom professions? One of the things
Uh,
I put a lot of or
yeah,
culture. Actually, I would highly recommend making custom cultures for your game. That would be sweet.
yeah. That's one of the things that I'm going to be doing is the custom cultures, and then the professions. I actually had a whole breakdown, and there's a lot of different versions of fighter. Like uh, Zweihander is a heavy armor, two-handed weapon, warrior, and like in RoleMaster, you don't really have that. I mean, you can make it, but I'm going to make a profession that's basically like this, like melee foot soldier with a giant axe or a giant sword and heavy armor, and that's the Zweihander. And then your you've got like two different types of knights. You've got your oathbound knight who is involved in this because he has an oath to his lord or whatever. And then later on, you're going to have like esoteric order knights. You've got your Knights Templar, Knights Hospitaller, etc. Those are more Second Crusade going on, but
Oh, interesting.
they're going to have those are going to be like your more paladin champion kind of guys because they're sworn to the church or whatever. Um, and yeah, I did a whole write up on all that before your RoleMaster system came out for Foundry, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set that aside for now. I'm just going to work on generating the content. But yeah, I am looking at like professions that are going to be more campaign specific.
Hey, so here's a secret. Something I noticed when I looked at when I had to make sure that my custom professions actually, all the existing professions actually followed the rules and they were the right DP and all that. So one thing I noticed in all the professions that so far have been published by ICE, none of the professions took just three base spell lists. Okay, so like all the semis take six base spell lists. Okay,
Yep.
and semis is like the fighting, so the more spell focused you are, the more expensive the other skill sets go. So the one way to reduce like your fighting skill set is don't take six base spell lists, take three, right? You can be like a fighter mage or something like that, where you're heavy on fighting, but you have better access to spells by taking three base spell lists. So anyway, so there's like you should explore that. I haven't fully gone through and worked it out, but I was really surprised when I saw that. I'm like, oh, everyone's got six. Why didn't they just take? There could be a cool semi that just takes three. So
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of the tail end things I'll be doing on my campaign. I'm right now I'm just trying to map it all out. I've got like Act One, Act Two, Act Three. Uh, I'm still there's just a lot of data because I'm trying to make it as historically accurate as possible, and so it's just I have to make sure it's what happens if they want to go to Paris. Okay, do I have 1096 AD Paris data? What do I have? You know, what happens if they
um,
go here, they go there? Because I don't want to make it
um,
a railroad necessarily, but
yeah,
I
cool.
like
That's bad.
I want to get them to Constantinople, and then from there, it's like you guys are supposed to join up with these historical events, but other than that, have fun. I think
That's awesome.
Once I get them to Constantinople and beyond, it'll be easier. It's just all the stuff before that, and I'm a stickler for like trying to make things as accurate as possible, like historically. So, like I have a player's primer
Dude.
that I meant to write up as like a 10-page primer, and it's like 115 pages.
Okay. Be prepared. Hey, let's go to Egypt.
That's on my to-do list. Like
That's what
let's that's a thing.
that's what I. Yep, yep.
I have a map and some data on the ruins of Carthage if they decide to go that route.
Oh,
That's
they're
why like
good.
session zero, I have to make sure everybody agrees. Like the first part of the game, this is the story this is where we're going. You have to help me out here and agree to be on some rails until we get like you leave Constantinople, you're on the eastern gate of Constantinople, do whatever you want. Until then, let's try to keep on a rail because otherwise like it's all of Europe. I have to map out all of Europe. Like what if they go
Yeah,
here? What
yeah.
if they go there? Um
Hey, let's go discover the new world.
yeah, I mean, I'd probably put a kibosh on that one, but but
Yeah.
like what if they hear about the legend of Arthur and they're like, it would be really cool if we brought Excalibur to the
Oh,
Crusades.
there you go.
Let's
That would
and
be bad.
I have a stat block placeholder for the Sword of Mars, aka Excalibur. So if they wanted to
Very
bring
good.
that in, what if they want to get the spear of Longinus, which in the First Crusades, according to legend, actually came about. They actually quote unquote dug it out. They were under siege and they taken. I can't remember which city it was. It was I cannot remember the city. That's not. I don't think it was Acre. It might have been. It started with an A. I can't remember which one it was. But they were under siege of this terrible thing where like the Crusaders had taken the city, but in taking the city, it pretty much wiped everybody out because they're just so awesome on the logistics of a crusade. And then they got surrounded and they were besieged for a whole season and a half. They're eating their horses, they're eating their shoes, they're starving to death. And this one priest says, "I had a dream, and the spear of Longinus is buried over here." And they went and they dug up this temple floor, and they found something that vaguely looked like a spear. And then they went out and fought, and they were victorious. And so like that's a Crusades, First Crusades myth legend thing. I actually first heard about it. I was watching a History Channel thing on the Crusades probably about 15 years ago, and they talked about it. So that's a that's a relic that I have to stat up because they might have that. What happens if they find the three nails of the cross? What kinds of shenanigans?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there you can do. That'd be really interesting. That'd be
yeah.
fun. That'd be fun to play.
I hope it's going to be a lot more fun than it is to design. It's still fun to design, but there's just a lot. And
Yeah.
I've been thinking about designing this campaign for a couple of years, and it's always been in my head like RoleMaster is like the way I wanted to do this. Um, there's actually like in our Pathfinder game, uh, it's a homebrew world, and I designed that world based off of like how I learned how to play RoleMaster back in the day, and then trying to make that work with Pathfinder. There's a whole lot of like, okay, this doesn't work for Pathfinder, but story wise, lore wise, this is a thing. Um, and yeah, so I'm really excited that Rollmaster Unified is out and that you brought it to Foundry because it really opens up a lot of options uh, and frees me creatively for a lot of stuff. And I just yeah really
I
appreciate
got
it.
Yeah, no worries, man. I think it's great. It'd be exciting to see what I'm really looking forward to, people like yourself that are making some videos on their actual play and things like that. And like you're going through like the Europe, I was gonna say like in game settings, you can before your characters make their characters for your game, you can pre-populate all the languages in game settings.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, yeah, then they'll
I
be available in the drop downs.
yeah I saw
So
that, and I think I have around 55 or 57 languages that are spoken. Like I have a breakdown for spoken language, written language, and then like the other one was sign language, and you have a couple of other options in Rollmaster. But yeah, which ones are
yeah,
spoken, which ones are written? Because by the time you have the Crusades, like ancient Egyptian, yeah, it's not really spoken. So that's one of those ones that the hieroglyphs, maybe somebody knows how to read it, but they don't really know how to speak it. So I have a whole
yeah,
list of like dead languages, and I'm going to be importing and putting all that in there. And then yeah,
that's
the
cool.
the the cultures and professions. I do want to get there, but I want to like build the world first. That's gonna be
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
last things before I really get the players involved. But
Oh my gosh, you'll be able to like sell your own compendium, medieval Europe compendium. Here's the
that
cultures and the language.
that is definitely a thing that is a possibility for me. And that's, I mean, I've thought about it, and that's why I've got like this. Like I said, I've got like this compendium primer thing that was supposed to be like a 20 page. So here's what you need to know about the Crusades, and I think I'm well over 100 pages so far
Yeah.
of just information and plot lead plot hooks and story seeds and just a whole lot of stuff. And yeah, I could make a RoleMaster unified ice, medieval Europe and the Levant
Oh,
compendium.
yeah, I'm sure. Oh yeah, I could, yeah, if you write a book or whatever, they'd probably talk to you about publishing it even.
All right, fingers crossed. Anyway, other than that, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this up? Because I've had you for about an
Uh,
hour now. I don't want to, or hour and a half.
oh,
Jeez.
really? Um, I don't think so. There's a lot. My you know my in the program, probably there's a guy as an Australian. He's one day. This was beginning of summer last year. Like, hey, when are you gonna do area effects spells? And I'm like, oh, dude, every week it's always something. You know,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I should probably investigate that. So that's what I did. Like the fireball, the cone effects, and so there's spells that are like that, or even the bolt spells. They're all wired up to animations and sound.
Yeah.
And that was an enormous amount of fun to do. I think that, but me and the other guys that were, beta testing for me, I think we did more Dragon's Breath spells and fireball attacks than had ever been done in all of history of Rollmaster and in that preceding week. Thousands of them. Uh, but it was a good time. A lot of those, and then when I did that, I was like, wow, there's so much more. Like Wall of Fire and all these types of things. All those can be animated. They can all be put into the system. So I think it's got good bones for that. So if I could just do one thing and not address every other feature that everyone needs, it would be on like the area effects spells. Those are a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah. Especially the automated animations module and the
Oh,
JBs and all that stuff.
JB2A. So yeah, that's my comment earlier. Standing on the shoulders of giants. Like I couldn't have done the art for all that. So there. So the presets that I have for like all those are all. It's like a mix of their free and a mix of their Patreon. The same with Perry's sound effects. It's a mix of his free and his Patreon. So if you don't subscribe or you didn't pay for any of that, you don't need their Patreon to see what's possible. But like skill rolls and things like that, there's a lot more depth in the preset file if you have the Patreon for those guys. Um, so yeah, and then the Forgotten Adventures, like Ice doesn't have it would take forever to commission. I don't know how many. There's like 400 or 500 stat blocks, but then there's variants of each one. So, I did a preset file for we actually this guy Ken in the beta group, he went through and like picked, a creature description to the best fitting Forgotten Adventures token. And it's just a list. And it's also a mix of their free and premium because some of their free didn't have a match at all, right? So I think with a free might get you to like 70% match, and then the premium, like a couple of bucks, you'll get like a 95% match on token on creatures.
Yeah.
So I really like the top down tokens. Those just bring so much flavor to like creature law. It all of a sudden becomes like, oh my god, this is amazing! I can see the demon or I can see the dragon, and then you pair that with JB2A and the sound effects that come with Perry stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate that when I was having issues with that, you brought me onto your VTT to show me how to actually do that because I was having I don't know I was having a fun day. I don't know what it was, but I was just having a hard time getting it figured out. And then you pointed out how to do it. Um, the only other thing I was thinking about, uh, with the tokens, and you've got like token rings that are an option on modules, and I'm gonna try and see if I can set up a token ring.
Dude, the Visage module, have you seen the Visage one?
Yes, I have.
That is bee's knees. Definitely look at that for like setting up token rings and whatnot.
I will definitely do that. What I'm looking at for token is I want to do like a token where like the front part, the module facing part is like one color, and then the sides are another, and the back is another, so that visually I can show my players front, front, back, and flanks on a token.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Dude, dude, you should I would put a feature request in on Visage. I bet you'll see something like that. I almost guarantee it. If you ask, I almost
Okay,
that's
I,
cool.
I
I
will
think a lot of
definitely
people.
do that because I was looking at this and like that would be really just a visual to help the players further think
Yeah.
of tactics and whatnot. Um, yeah, I will definitely do that. And yeah, I just want to say thanks again for the time. Um, I appreciate the amount of time you've given me, and
And,
I
oh,
look
I
forward
hope
to what
your
else you've
video.
got coming up.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing like the good and the bad. So let me know. And yeah, I like your idea on the facing. Because a lot of people don't like for their tokens they'll use different types of tokens, and it's a little bit harder to see what the facing is. So that would be an amazing change for um yeah. So I would ask uh you know the Visage guy, just put on his features today, just say I want explain it. I bet that comes into his queue.
I will, because yeah, that would actually work out a lot better than what I was thinking, which was making token rings that did that on my own. So yeah,
Oh,
if he's
oh
already doing
yeah,
it,
you can totally. Yeah, I mean, you totally. That's a great idea. Even you can do it yourself. That's what's cool about Foundry. You can pretty much do anything you want.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to be posting this on my website, on my YouTube, and I am looking forward to more of what you can bring. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you again in the very near future, probably. All righty. Have a good
Yeah,
day, sir.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, David. I appreciate talking to you today.